Welcome back, everyone, to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. And once more, let us go into the breach. Joe, I like Josh Hawley. I really do. I particularly
like him too.
I'm gonna take Taylor Marshall's advice. If I saw Josh Hawley, I'm gonna buy him a beer, particularly because he put the screws to Merrick Garland. And he said specifically, and Hawley's not Catholic. He said, do you have an anti-Catholic bias at the DOJ? Of course, Merrick Garland started to get all flustered because I don't think he saw that question coming. And there's a lot more than that to like about Josh Hawley. I believe he's sincere. I think he really is a much more polished version of Donald Trump. And what I mean by that is I do believe he represents the people. I do believe that he has the people's interest at heart, not just the people of Missouri, where he's a senator, but the American people in general, particularly on the issues of censorship and putting the screws to us, on abortion, on anti-Catholic and anti-Christian bigotry in our country. So I give him a lot of he has a lot of credibility with me.
I like him.
I want to play the clip, a little part of the clip he did with Jesse Waters about the FBI probe, the Russia probe, and then we're going to come back and break it down.
There needs to be a lot more than reports, Jesse. People need to be prosecuted for this. The Clinton campaign and Hillary Clinton herself, is it any coincidence that she is tweeting about collusion at exactly the same time her campaign operatives are feeding this BS to the FBI? I don't think so. There needs to be consequences for her and also for the FBI. FBI leadership has clearly got to be changed. And Jesse, I'm of the mind we need to end the FBI as we know it. It needs to be broken up. I mean, clearly it has become corrupt. The leadership is corrupt. You can talk to FBI agents in the field. I was just doing this this past week. Great folks in my home state all over the place, but they're not served by this leadership. This leadership has become totally, radically politicized, and we've got to change it.
I'll tell you what we got to do. If a Republican gets in there, they have to investigate the Clinton Foundation. They have to investigate the foreign money flowing into the Clinton campaign. They have to investigate the foreign bribes going to the Biden family. Or are we just going to say, okay, you know what? It's even. We're in the White House now. Let's play fair. Is that what Republicans are going to do?
No, we've got to get justice here, and justice needs to be served. You can't interfere in a presidential election without consequences. At least you used to not be able to in America. And that's what happened here. That's what this report shows, that one political party, the Democrats, tried to use the FBI to rig a presidential election.
Let's leave it there, Joe. Jesse Waters made a very good point, by the way, that we've asked here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Are you going to do anything?
No.
That's it. And there's the $64,000 question. Joe, it's a bit cliched to say it like this, but this is what I want. I want Hillary Clinton in an orange jumpsuit.
Never
if there's
happened.
a person in our government, Joe, if there's a person in our government who is the embodiment of everything that we detest as far as their worldview, as far as their tactics, as far as their hunger for power, their greed for money and prestige and all those cocktail parties you talk about, all right, and wanting to be the queen of the United States. If there's anybody that embodies that, it's that woman. And because of her actions, and which is what this report showed and what Hawley's talking about, she belongs in an orange jumpsuit. And we'll never, ever see that.
I think they all belong in an orange jumpsuit. The only way, and what he said is right, the FBI does need to be broken up. You say that, you're an extremist, you're written off, the press writes you off, they blow the trumpet, and everyone believes it. Joe, I'm going to tell you this, and this is a radical statement. I'm going to say it. America needs another revolution. That's the only way that things get fixed.
Qualify that, Joe.
To be honest with you, a groundswell, and this is why, and they know it. They say the greatest threat is domestic because they know that the discontent is bubbling. America, and I'm not calling people to arms, but what I am saying, because it can be done through nonviolence. We've seen Gandhi throw out a world power. The world's power without firing a bullet. He said, you will leave because he had such a groundswell. They are terrified of that.
Right.
And that's why they will censor. That's why that they will do anything they can because they know that that is bubbling. But here's my point. Power is never given back. It's taken. And
Right.
they have taken it from people through special interests, through lobbying, through pork assigned to bills. The Republican Party does nothing. They're all part of the friggin' garbage game that we watch on television. Very few. And by the way, those who do, and Hawley, I would say for a lot of part talks a good game. He brings stuff out. He'll go nowhere because they'll never support a guy like that.
Right. Well,
Ever.
there are too many conservative sounding rhinos in the Republican Party that when push
Waste of
comes to
time.
shove, when it comes to having to make difficult decisions, difficult meaning, yeah, put Hillary up there, put the screws to her, launch an investigation, a criminal investigation into her and her foundation, and get Bill in there too. Got to get
Never
Bill.
will happen. Ever.
Bill in an
Never.
orange jumpsuit would be almost as satisfying as Hillary in an orange
But
jumpsuit.
my point is, America needs to rid itself of the establishment. Again, it would be a cleansing. There's so many things. You could talk about the DOJ. You could talk about the FBI. You could talk about the Federal Bureau of Education. We can go on and on and on.
Can I give you an example of a revolution in America that after our original revolution that was nonviolent? And again, we believe here at the front line with Joe and Joe that the left is evil. All right, they embrace evil ideas and then implement those evil ideas.
Let me prove to people
Go
what
ahead,
you
go
said
ahead,
is
please.
right. Look at, we just covered something that took place in Boston, the Satan Con.
Oh yeah.
Look at the positions. Forget about the pictures that group of individuals are for, and juxtapose that to what the Democratic Party stands for currently. Frank Pavone did that. Father Frank Pavone. Look at the comparison objectively.
Right.
It is evil.
There's no
not
difference.
political.
There's no difference. Right. I want to give you an example of, and many of you out there listening to us at the front line with Joe and Joe will remember this. Here's how you do it in a nonviolent way. The only problem, Joe, is that the left knows this. That's why they want all the things we talked about as far as they don't want to do anything about voter ID and things like that. In the late 1980s, when Rush Limbaugh first came on the scene, okay, he took off, by the way. They thought he was nuts. They said, you're going to do a show just yourself? Talking for 3 hours? You're going to have guests? He goes, no. What are you going to talk about? I'm going to talk about what's going on out there, politics, culture. That's what I'm talking about. They went, you're crazy. Became the biggest radio personality of all time. Okay. But what he did do, more importantly, he raised the consciousness of the American people. He was a voice on conservative AM radio at the time. Okay. And then others came. So many came before him that laid the groundwork, but Rush took it to a new level. But what was the practical result of that? Well, Bill Clinton got elected in 1992 because Papa Bush just was not a good campaigner. And Ross Perot, and you could get into all that. But because Rush Limbaugh was raising our consciousness as to what was going on, informing us as to what was going on. In 1994, Joe, that was a revolution. When Newt Gingrich and the Republicans swept the House, Joe, they hadn't had the House in over 40 years at that point. Over 40 years they hadn't held the House, and it had been at least a decade since they had the Senate. That was a revolution. You want to know why? Bill Clinton was forced to sign 8 out of 10 of the points that were proposed in the contract with America. And those things led, I will always give Clinton credit that he did put his signature on that legislation. These Democrats would have vetoed everything.
100% agree.
Clinton at least
different
did
party.
that. But Clinton at least did that, and it led to the late 90s boom that we saw. Okay.
Well,
and there's a lot more you can talk about.
Clinton was a politician. You see, that's
But-
Joe. Okay, go.
But my larger point, and then I want your comments, is this. That was an American revolution. The discontent was boiling over, and the people said, we've given the Democrats 40 years in the House, and this is where we are. Time for a change. And they changed it, and it changed the country for the better. That's the kind of revolution we need. I'm going to give you one final point. That's why social media needs to be protected by the conservatives and the government, like Josh Hawley, because we and collectively out here doing these podcasts and radio shows, we are raising the consciousness of the American people to the point where the left is not going to be able to control it anymore.
Couple points. First of all, what people have to get through their head is that's not the Democratic Party now. Too many people still think it is. Bill Clinton was a politician, and he understood he had to sign that. And he did. This is not the party now. These are ideologues. That's number one. Number two, by doing what he did, he diffused the pot that was boiling. That's not going on now. And
No.
the pot continues to boil.
Can I make a quick point?
I can't predict when it's going to boil over. But I am going to tell you this, Joe Pasillo. It may not be now. It could be in 15 years. It could be in 20 years. When it does, it's not going to be pretty. Because the pendulum swings from right to left. And an event, particularly the pandemic, allowed for a power grab to take place in this country. There could be a geopolitical event that swings things the other way, i.e., and it's happening potentially right now, Russia is on high nuclear alert. If Russia was to drop a nuclear bomb on the Ukraine, Donald Trump's the president of the United States, and he has carte blanche to do anything he wants. Or worse, you get Donald Trump times 2.
Well,
this is what I'm saying. The boiling pot is coming, and it's coming, and there could be an event. And if that happens, look out, people.
Joe, let me ask you this. I mean, I think you made the distinction here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Please, wherever you see us, hit a button, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. You made a distinction between the Democrats of the 90s and the Democrats now. I disagree with everything. I hated Joe Biden. I can't stand him now. Okay, or his policies. Let me not say I hated him. All right, he's been a liar from the get-go. He was in that Senate. And so many of the people, or some of the people that are still here now. Anyway, I think that those Democrats, at least like Bill Clinton, actually value America. That's why he was like, he saw the political handwriting and said, well, I'm going to have to work with the Republicans on this. These Democrats, I think the main distinction is they hate America.
Joe,
they don't like the idea of America. And that's why they don't care about the pot boiling over. I think, Joe, by the way, I'm going to throw this out to you for a final comment. I think they would welcome the pot boiling over, because with the power that they grabbed during COVID, they're going to use that power.
They will, but you know something? It may boil over to a point that they can't control it. You see, that's the mistake they're making. The left always overplays its hand. And what I am saying is you're right. Bill Clinton was a shrewd man. He, like him or not, you got to give credit where credit's due. He was shrewd.
Right.
They are using raw power. And look at history, people. Don't listen to Joe Resinello and Joe Pasillo. People that do that, eventually it catches up to you. And I'm telling you right now, when that pot does boil out of control, Jake Tapper's going to have to run for the hills. And I'm just telling you, historically speaking, I'm not telling you I'm going to do it. What I am telling you is the discontent is there, and they're not releasing any gas on it.
Well, Joe, I'm just going to leave you with this, and then we'll leave it for another time. You look at the tyrants, all the tyrants, and this Democrat Party, they're a tyrannical party. They'll say, well, no, we have representatives, and say, you're a tyrannical party. You listen to nothing of what the American people want. That's why, like we said in an early video that you could see on Twitter about Mayorkas, that they say white supremacy is the greatest threat to our democracy. They say that because they need to demonize not a small group of the
people, Joe.
The people. Because remember, there are a lot of Democrats that disagree with this Democrat Party. They're 100%. White supremacists too, Joe.
There's black people that they label almost as white.
How do you call a black guy a white supremacist? How does
Larry Elder a white supremacist?
Who?
Who's running for president?
Who?
He calls himself the black face of white supremacy. That's Larry Elder. He
Larry
calls
Elder.
himself. That's what he says about him. That's what they call him.
Right. Right. It's amazing. And that's what we're fighting against. Hopefully Josh Hawley in the Senate is going to be able to, maybe twist some arms and start getting down to some, real talk about doing something and holding people accountable, like that witch that you see on the screen there, Hillary Clinton. And I'm sorry, Joe, I know you don't want me to call people names. She's an evil woman. Witches are evil, and she's an evil woman. She embraces every evil there is and tries to destroy anybody in her path. I would only pray. I don't want her to die. I don't want her to get the death penalty. I want to see her held accountable. I want to see her in an orange jumpsuit. I want to see her behind bars.